Oh, I just recognized someone in the participant, Joyce. Joyce, I think I was a part of media literacy training that you ran with Renee Hobbs several years ago. Your name rings a bell with me. Anyway, hi, it is 7 o'clock, so we're going to get started. I'm Carolyn Jacobs with WGBH Education, and I know that lots of people will be joining us, but we are recording. And so if you listen to the recording, you won't miss anything, and I imagine that many of you are listening to me now as a recording in the future. So we know that it's tough, certainly a tough time of the year, and sometimes very challenging to log on to webinars in the live stream, so everything is always recorded. So we are going to be exploring social-emotional learning, which is fondly referred to as SEL, and we'll be looking at what it is, why we should care, and how we can make it happen. We're using Adobe Connect as our platform. We will send out the link to the recording on Monday in an email in which we will include all the links also, and there are many of them that Chani is going to be referring to. And we invite you to use the chat box to speak with the presenter as well as your colleagues. We do get a transcript of the chat, so if we're not able to get back to you with and answer your question, we will later on. And we'll try and keep up with the chat box as we move through the presentation. This is a co-production hosted by PBS LearningMedia and WGBH. I'm Carolyn with WGBH Education out of Boston. WGBH is Boston's PBS station and a major producer of content that is shown on public television stations all across the country. For example, Frontline, American Experience, Nova, lots of kids programs, and the very popular Antique Roadshow all start in Boston. And we have collaborated with the Massachusetts School Library Association for this session. A huge thanks to Laura Luker and also Kathy Lowe from MSLA for helping us get this together and also get the word out to you librarians around the country. And then, of course, to our presenter, Chani Craig, who's also a member of MSLA. Chani, we've gotten to know each other well over the past few weeks that we've been presenting this, and you are delightful. Chani is a librarian, a teacher, and a coach from Western Mass. She presented on this topic at a recent conference in Massachusetts for school librarians, and I think it will become obvious to you very quickly how well versed she is in the topic. Chani is a longtime yoga teacher and committed to bringing mindfulness practices to both staff and students. So Chani, the floor is all yours.
Excellent. Hello, everyone, and everyone who will be listening to this later. So again, if you have any questions, please type them in the chat box at any time during the presentation, but hopefully this will be useful for you. Moving on here, we have starting off with a pop quiz, because anytime you say quiz or test or exam, it creates some emotion within a person. Some people enjoy them. Some people, like our students, can have test anxiety. So this one's a little simple one. So what I want you to do is to bear with me and do a little scenario now, which would involve you closing your eyes. Don't worry, the slides will all be there. You can look at them later if you need to read them, but you close your eyes and imagine yourself sitting peacefully in your library. This is imagination, so peaceful library environment. And then, of course, the bell rings, and you hear the students coming through the door, closely followed by their classroom teacher. Then maybe a phone rings, and things start to pile on top of that. So take a deep breath. Imagine that you're standing up to start your day with your students, And then I'd like you to just look at this sheet right here and pick one adjective or two adjectives, however many adjectives you want, there's no number, that maybe describes how you'd be feeling. So it may be overwhelmed, it may be excited, maybe you're the type of teacher that loves to get started on that. But everyone's going to have an adjective or an emotion that they're going to feel in a situation like that. And a lot of the times we're not aware of those, and so what they do is they sort of hijack the way that we react. I had a couple other graphics in case you're more of a visual person. By the way, did I mention you could open your eyes already? So you're done visualizing. We're now identifying the feelings that we have. So there's the simple graphic, and then there's a feelings wheel. All of these are useful tools, which we're going to refer back to as we continue with this. So to begin, though, we're going to start with identifying what SEL is, social and emotional learning, why we need it and how it works. And then I have tons of trainings and resources for you, specifically for you to help with students, for you to give to teachers, lots of slides with lots of links. And then the last part of this will be really examining how to take the social and emotional programs and things that we do already in the library and demonstrating to our administrations, to the funding decision makers in our buildings, how libraries are vital, key, and support those social and emotional initiatives, because as you'll see in a minute, those things can be very important, especially on a national, state, or in a district or school level. So social and emotional learning, I think, is pretty clear that it's here to stay for a while. Moving on from that, so we're starting with what is social and emotional learning. This particular infographic is right from CASEL's website. I'll talk a little more about them in a second, CASEL.org. And they are an organization that has spent the last 30 or so years doing research and really identifying the ways that social and emotional learning helps support academic learning. So in the last 10 or so years, it has been proven in different research arenas. I should just say there's a growing body of evidence to support that social and emotional learning will increase and improve academic goals, that it decreases student misbehavior or negative affective ideas. So social and emotional learning is really the companion to academic learning, and it's something that as teachers and people that work with students, you know, if you've worked with students, that is a key component of what you teach. You don't just teach research. You don't just teach math or science. You teach students how to be, how to deal with stress, how to be good citizens, and all of that. What it is, and I included this comic because there are critics that believe that social and emotional learning, that the purpose of it is to take and control and sort of dictate how students should feel or how they should respond in situations. But I just want to assure you that that is not the case, that SEL, social and emotional learning, only teaches you how to identify the feelings that you're having. It helps kids become aware of those feelings and how they impact their actions so that then they can better manage their behaviors. And that's just the emotional piece. So let's go on to this next slide. Actually, I'm going to skip these two and come back to them. So here's a little case for why we need social and emotional learning. Specifically for kids, in 2015, you guys can read this statistic, but a large number of students, and it seems to be increasing, experience negative mental health effects. So depression, teen suicide, especially with books like 13 Reasons Why. These issues are coming out into the public eye more and more, and so a lot of the statistics surrounding this show that social and emotional learning has an impact on helping decrease some of those negative affective disorders. And if you're looking at the bottom of this slide, it says around 1 in 5 teens, at least 1 in 10 preteens experience diagnosed emotional distress. So I put diagnosed on there just because if you work in schools, you know that kids will come in and out of these negative experiences that impact them, but there can be a lot more issues than just what is obviously reported. But the youngest ages that they really do any diagnosis is going to be around 8 to 15 years. So that, for elementary school teachers, there are still students in those age groups, you can look at that chart right there on the right, that experience those negative emotions. And then, of course, you yourselves. So we need SEL, social emotional learning, for ourselves. 46% of U.S. teachers. There's not any statistics that I found that separate out librarians, but we're putting ourselves in this category. Have daily stress that's more than what the nation's doctors report. And that to me is very telling, is that a large number of educators experience extreme levels of stress, and we could go on into that, but I think that we all are aware that when you work with the public, and especially with children and students in that age group, that in any of the school age groups, that there's definitely a lot of stress associated with that, and the stress that you have affects the students. So it's sort of this cycle that we get into. So when teachers are highly stressed, the children also show higher levels of that. So clearly there is a need for something to sort of help these negative affects. And so what that is, what I believe that is this group of competencies and skills that are sort of packaged into this idea of social emotional learning. So I'm going through a few of the acronyms, you know, and then I'll try to tie all these acronyms together and give you just a snapshot of the overview of what's happening. I have already said that I believe social emotional learning is a precursor to academic learning. So it's sometimes called a companion, but I really feel that students need to have a secure base from which to reach their academic potential. So if they are stressing out, you know, a lot of trauma-informed practice and other things show if a kid is hungry, they're not going to be focused. If they dealt with stress at home before they came to school, they're not going to be focused on the academic stuff. If they're dealing with trauma, you know, all of those things. So precursor is my word in there. CASEL is the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning, which is just sort of the organization that's sort of the leader in this field and has done work on standardizing the 5 core competencies, which I will show you in a moment. Additionally, the Aspen Institute, which is a nonprofit, nonpartisan research organization there, they are working with, they've created an education and society program. And if you go, there's a link to the Aspen Institute there. I think you're putting it in the, yes. Caroline's going to put it in the box for you. But you can go to aspeninstitute.org, and they have an education and society program where under that program, under education, obviously, the National Commission for Social, Emotional, and Academic, I'm going to go to the next slide because that's on here, SEED, Social, Emotional, and Academic Development. That's a national commission that's been formed specifically to help in advising in national policy for Every Student Succeeds Act, for ESSA. So that particular, thanks for that, Caroline. In that particular commission, it's rather high stakes. So they're trying to inform on the ESSA, Every Student Succeeds, with the additional indicator, which has given a lot of flexibility to states to decide how to promote those additional success indicators outside of academic success. And so because social and emotional learning supports academic success as well as sort of is its own thing, this is the policy commission that's going to help determine what happens to the potential $1.65 billion that have been set aside to improve, to support this particular additional indicator. I'm getting a little lost in the weeds, guys. There's so much here, so bear with me. And then the MTSS, which if you're in Massachusetts, you would think of this as the Massachusetts Tiered Systems of Support. But nationally, it's just a multi-tiered system of support. It's that pyramid that you'll see in a moment that basically starts with programs that support the whole student population, and then also the the second level of the pyramid supports groups that you have identified as needing extra additional help. And then the last one, the top of the pyramid, is identifying specific individuals that need really targeted intervention. So that's more of a delivery system for how social and emotional learning is put into schools. And then I'm just here on the last acronym mentioning the ACEs test. And if you're not familiar with that, it just stands for the Adverse Child Experience Study, which when anyone actually takes this test, they found a correlation between having specific negative experiences in childhood that affect future mental health issues, for example, or levels of happiness. And so I found it was interesting that the original study that started the ACEs test was on obesity, which is where they found a link between the mental health and physical health, which is a fascinating thing, to say the least. Again, we can go down all of these different wormholes or rabbit holes, what have you, but let's go to this last slide. This is the bulk of the information, and then I'd love to hear any questions about this, specifically how this sort of relates. So this is just trying to pull all of those acronyms and what I've already said together. So we have CASEL, who has developed 5 core competencies. That is the major organization that's sort of promoting and codifying the language of social and emotional learning. We have the Every Student Succeeds Act. Even though in current administration we don't know exactly how that's all going to play out, there is language in there for an additional indicator that states are proposing plans in order to have access to funding, and there's a high likelihood that that's going to be social and emotional learning pieces, especially because the Aspen Institute is helping has basically formed that policy commission that's going to help advise Washington, D.C., how to sort of deal with those pieces. And then there's the pyramid I was talking about. That's one way that you're going to see a lot of these interventions being put into place in school districts. And then I put 2 specific things for Massachusetts on there because a number of people in this webinar are going to be from Massachusetts, and of course I'm with MSLA. And there are 8 other states, by the way, so you may be one of the other states that are also partnering with CASEL, but our Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education is partnering with CASEL to inform policy on how to adopt social and emotional learning to support that asset indicator. The link there that I think, Carolyn, did you put that up there? So the link there, I believe, is one that will take you to where you can sign up for a email alert that will tell you when DESE is updating some of its information on the social and emotional piece. Okay, here's the core competencies. I can see in the chat that people have already kind of cheated and looked at it. I knew with a bunch of librarians online that I wouldn't get away with putting this off for too long, and you probably looked at it. But this is the graphic that CASEL uses. And it looks like all of the pieces, the 5 core competencies of social and emotional learning, are interrelated, which they are. But I will say that in my experience with this, they are also very progressive. So if you start at the top of the page there, the first ones I would number would be the first one being self-awareness. So if you are teaching these as a progression of skills, self-awareness would be helping students and others within your realm of influence identify the emotions that they're feeling at the time that they're feeling it. The self-management piece is usually the first piece that classroom teachers and I keep glancing at the chat, other people try to push onto students in school. So they usually, like, imagine a classroom where a kid is misbehaving. Usually the first thing you say is, Jimmy, stop doing X or Y or Z. So we're asking students to manage and regulate their emotions before actually helping them to identify what they are. And I know in elementary schools, we spend a lot of time on identifying emotions and talking about better ways to deal with emotions. But in my experience with middle and high school, we leave off that piece. It's almost like they had to learn it in elementary school, so we're just going to keep going. Just regulate yourself. And then to step that up, if you can't regulate yourself on your own, how are you going to be able to do that with others? So the next set of skills would be interactions with others, and that would be social awareness and developing emotional understanding and empathy. And then relationship skills, where you can regulate your interactions with others so that they can be positive. And then the last piece is that responsible decision-making piece, and that's the one that is for the better of all of us, the greatest good of all the people concerned, using all of the tools along the way. So when I look at these skills, I see a progression of skills that build on each other and help each other, but are not necessarily in the interconnected, you can just kind of pull one out and learn it separately from the others. However, if you're in Massachusetts, Massachusetts has identified responsible decision-making, that fifth level skill, as the one that we're going to be using and focusing on for Mass DOA. All right, that was a lot of talking and a lot of information. So we're going to have a test. Everybody ready? Psych, we're going to take a break. Because, again, test anxiety is one of the things that we see on the rise in schools, especially with the standardized tests. So here is just one quick thing that we're going to practice ourselves, so that this is something that, as a librarian, you can bring to your staff, you can bring to your students. But there are many simple breathing and break activities that you can use to help people come out of an emotional reaction or response and then just kind of come back to themselves. So everyone right now who's Googling other things, we're going to sit, and we're going to just take our left hand, put it on our belly, take our right hand and put it on our chest, and then close your eyes, and without doing anything differently, just notice the breath as it comes into the body and as it goes out of the body. So just noticing the movement of the left hand as it comes in and the right hand, and then coming out. And then when you're ready, inhale one more deep breath through the nose and feel the filling up of your belly and your midribs as your chest expands, and you're bringing in a big breath, and then you're exhaling it all out. So just begin to make that breath bigger. One more big breath just like that, breathing into the belly and the chest. And then exhale. And on the next breath in, we're going to breathe in for a count of 4. So breathing in for 2, 3, 4. Hold the breath for 1, 2, 3, 4. Slowly exhale for 2, 3, 4. And hold the breath out for 2, 3, 4. Back in for 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold for 2, 3, 4. Exhale 2, 3, 4. Hold out for 2, 3, 4. And then last inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold 2, 3, 4. Out for 2, 3, 4. And hold for 2, 3, 4. And then as you are coming back to normal breath, just feel in the body any difference that that breath made. Just bringing your attention to your breath can sometimes be enough to break a cycle of stressful thoughts. And if your eyes are still closed, you can open them now, and I'm going to take you right back to that adjectives page where you can pick an adjective or 2 or 3 or 10, whatever. If you can feel 10 emotions at a time, that's great. Teenagers can. That's a superpower that they have. So looking at this list and the graphics list, you may notice that you are feeling different emotions now than you were at the beginning of this webinar. And that was only about 20 minutes ago that I asked you to do that. So one of the powerful things that happens when you ask people to pay attention to their emotions is that they realize in real time with a real experiment with their own body that emotions change, which then can free, especially for students and adolescents, can free them from the idea that because they're angry or mad or frustrated or even happy, excited, in love, that those things are going to change and that it's natural for it to change. And it can help students who get caught up in that anger and that frustration and emotion and help to de-escalate them and bring them back to a place where they can make more rational decisions and actually become a better self-manager, which is the second step. Okay, so there is a piece of mindfulness in this, and part of the reason I'm starting with that and part of the reason that I'm having you practice those particular skills in this webinar is because social and emotional learning has to start with you as the librarian. You can see here I just have two examples. If you were at my MESLA presentation, these are two of my current favorite articles and book on mindfulness or sort of being a better librarian through controlling the things that I have control over, which is really just my state of mind and how I react to people. So Zen and the Art of Dealing with a Difficult Patron promotes those 5 ideals, which are very similar to the chapter in The Mindful Librarian, the chapter 8, which for school librarians is vital because a lot of times we're the only librarian in the building. So we have a need to have these kind intentions for ourselves so that we don't judge ourselves. And because if you as the librarian react frustrated or all of us are stressed, all of us have a lot of things to do, we all have the reasons behind why we could act frustrated. But what we need to make sure to do is to create that welcoming, warm environmental space that we want kids to feel welcome in. We have to clean our own emotional house, so to speak, and be able to have those tools to put those reasons aside and focus on what is actually important. And I'm hoping this isn't coming across as preachy, because what this is intended to be is a gift to you in order to reduce your stress, increase your ability to do the job that you all signed up to do, and to also help students and staff in your school be able to do better as well. All right, so you can't teach what you can't model. These are just some things that I've put together to give you experiences with things like MBSR, which is mind-body stress reduction. If you were to look up right now, wherever you are, there are a number of organizations in every, I would say in every state in the union. MBSR is a program created by John Kabat-Zinn, who brought mindfulness into sort of the public awareness in the 70s. And it is research-based and has been shown to reduce negative affect and stress and improve all sorts of health benefits. So you can do that in person if you find one of those. You can do this free online 8-week training, which is fabulous as well. I also have on there yoga, because of course I'm shamelessly self-promoting yoga. It has done wonderful things in my life. When I came to it, I actually went to it as a seminar for PTSD, and learning how yoga could help, my own personal experiences with that, has really transformed that aspect of my life. And Tai Chi and moving meditation, and I have a little asterisk there. Other forms of exercise are excellent stress reducers. However, to really be in this mindfulness meditative movement sort of area and paying attention to one's physical and mental state, these are the ones that are going to help the most. And I say this as a runner, a lifetime runner. I've done marathons, I've done half Ironman, and there are people that can get to that meditative state while doing other types of exercise, and that's great, but I think that these are the ones that for beginners are the best. Other training, the mental health first aid training, you can just look that up. Please, Carolyn, if you have a moment, put that link on there. I just completed that training. It's fabulous, especially the one specifically aimed for youth. If you work with adolescents, 12 to 24, whatever range you want to put that as, the mental health first aid training gives you some tools. It's just like a regular first aid in that you are basically the stopgap measure. You help identify someone that's in need. You help get them the support and professional help that they need, and it's a great training course, and the best thing about it is if you find one in your area, it is free. These are ones that I have personal experience in. Basic mediation trainings are fabulous. Listening is a key skill of any of these social and emotional learning components. And restorative justices, trauma-informed practices, all of these different trainings, if you're already doing them in your school, great. Latch onto those, because I'll show you in a minute how we can leverage some of this to demonstrate how our libraries make this more possible. Okay, sorry, I get a little excited about some of those. There are also apps. You can recommend these to students, other teachers. You can use them yourself. The ones that are in bold on there are ones that I have personal experience with. The Insight Timer, I believe, is the one that will actually tell you how many other people are currently, quote, meditating at that moment in time, which is kind of a cool feature if you want to make sure that you're not the only one in the world sitting around just thinking about stuff. So those are some excellent things you can put on your phone and use your phone that you're attached to most days as a tool. And then I threw this on the other day because I'd been listening to some podcasts. If you're like me and you drive, have any sort of, thanks Carolyn, and you drive and have any sort of commute, Invisibilia, I think I said season 2, I believe it's season, okay, yeah, it is season 3, but this season they have 2 episodes on emotions, which were really fascinating and very related to the first competency. And I really do hit on this first competency in this presentation because I want to underline the fact that that's where most of this is going to start. I put a couple other ones on there. The moth, I'm about to do a big cross-country move, and one of the things that I was talking with one of the teachers that I'll be working with was potentially doing a storytelling project with the library, which would be a great thing that can hit on all of those social and emotional components and competencies. And the Moth, of course, has a great platform and actually has a school support page program within their thing. And then I did put 4 TED Talks on there. Of course, I am addicted to TED Talks, and I also said anything by Brene Brown. And I'm assuming that most people have probably seen Sir Kenneth Robinson's Do Schools Kill Creativity? And that's just a good refresher. If you haven't seen that one, that's also on there. So there's some tools for you guys. You can look back at this later. And then there are some different resources here to share with teachers. So I feel like many teachers are going to be versed on this if they're coming out of, if they're newer teachers, or if your district has really adopted this. But for those of you whose teachers need a little extra support in this area, you can be the source for that. There's some there integrating SEL with Common Core, which is great. It's a goal that I have in the future to sort of connect library programs to Common Core goals, and then being able to connect that to show how that supports the social emotional learning. And then obviously many different resources there. There's 2 PBS LearningMedia sources that Carolyn will show you soon at the end of this. And so this come back to, it looks like we're sharing all of these at the end of the webinar, all these links. And then there's book recommendations. And this is more specifically for collection development. Elementary school teachers, amazing. There are so many sources for you to help improve your social emotional learning collection development. Open Circle is a fabulous organization. I want to say they're not out of Berkeley. They're out at Wellesley. They're connected to a college, and they have book lists pre-K through 5. There's the Center for Social and Emotional Foundations for Early Learning also has a great book list. So I just put a few on there. And then the secondary level, there's articles, there's some book suggestion lists, but I started a group source document. So that's one link that's going to take you to a Google form. Thank you, brain. It's going to take you to a Google form, and if you have recommendations, like if you are thinking right now of a book that might support any of these competencies, we're going to create a source for ourselves. So you can kind of help create that. Clearly there's a number of books that can fall into this category and be used to support the social emotional learning. All right, deep breath. I'm just checking if there's any other questions. Because here's the part that when I did my presentation at MISLA, many people wanted me to give them specific programs that were going to basically just demonstrate how libraries support social and emotional learning. But I think one of the most important things about SEL learning is that you specifically in your school are going to have different needs than what other students are going to have. So that means that what might work in my school is not going to necessarily transfer to yours. So what I am going to attempt to do is to give you a process by which you can take the things you're already doing, break them down to demonstrate how they relate to the core competencies, to the skills, to the social emotional initiatives that are out there, and then I'm going to give you a few forms and things so that we can do this work sort of on our own, but hopefully this will be a process that is helpful. So again, apologies, I can't continue to give you exactly what you need. It seems I have maybe lost the connection. Carolyn, can you still hear me?
Yes, Chani, you disappeared from the box, so you need to log back in. We can still hear you on the phone, though.
Excellent. So while I'm doing that, can you, I just checked my internet connection is fine. That's weird. Can you just advance the slides?
Sure, absolutely.
I'm just going to open a new browser and try a new. So I'm not exactly sure what slide we're on, so I'm going to keep going through this a little bit. Actually, no, I can pull them up on this one. So
we're
if you're
on the objective slide. Yep.
Excellent. So if you are on the slide, so actually, since it says it's connecting.
Oops.
Oh, well, that's fun. If you're on the slide that says objective, basically your objective is going to be to demonstrate to your administration how the library support social emotional practices. So the process that I came up with was to identify the initiatives at the state, district, national school, whatever the level is that you feel is best to connect it to with your school. You're going to find something. So this is the Mass one, Massachusetts, and it's focused on supporting social emotional learning, health, and safety. Great. And then in that second part, it talks about that they're focusing on the 5th core strategy of supporting social and emotional health. So I took that from the initiative and I broke down the competencies are always going to be the same. So we have responsible decision making as the focus of the Massachusetts state. However, I've already said that I believe that the 4 competencies that come before are important to developing that 5th course competency. So I actually, on the skills, picked the first one, because I told you I'm focusing on the first one today, which is to identify the emotions as they occur, to help students move from reaction to emotions to action after deliberation. And that means that they're basically teenagers in my work, and actually younger kids as well, and some adults. They feel something, and then they act, and then later they might think about it and regret that. So what identifying the emotions tries to do is give space to move from a feel, act, think to a feel and then think before acting, giving yourself time to make that extra space there. And then additionally, it can improve self-esteem, self-worth, and by realistically identifying areas of strength and areas of improvement. And then these are the programs or supports. So I tried to be very broad with this so that this process could work for any of you. The first thing a library does, I think, is provides a safe space. It provides a space where students can come to read, can come to work, can come and feel like they maybe have some control over where they can be in the school. And anyone that's worked in school libraries or any library knows that there are specific kids and people that come to those libraries with specific needs. And so the physical space, I loved this, and I included an article to this research. I'm really big on library redesign and creating space, physical space that encourages creativity and student safety. And this study here has showed that it can influence a child's development by as much as 25% positively or negatively over the course of the academic year. So we put these kids in these institutional buildings and expect them to do all of these wonderful creative things. So I see so many wonderful examples of awesome physical spaces that librarians are designing all over the country. And I think we got that down. And then from that book, Mindfulness for Librarians, and yes, I agree with the comment that it is expensive. I will definitely say it's been worth it in my experience because I carry it with me pretty much at all times. I had it at my meeting last night. But if the librarian is kind to himself or herself, the library itself will be a friendly, compassionate place. Sometimes I hear us talk about how we should do more, we should be able to do this or that or the other thing, and if we bring a space of judgment into our work, then students are going to understand that they will also feel judged. And so that's a very tricky place to be. So what we try to do is be kind, do the best that we can, and understand that not everything is going to be perfect. You know, I'm going to get kicked off a webinar, things are going to happen, it's going to be fine. Okay, the last one's here. Bye, Joyce. This is so intimidating to have Joyce on there. She's amazing. The supports, another one that I had on here was information literacy, and the News Literacy Project is a great example of a project that's embedding social and emotional supports into the library, into the research process or into the work. So the very first step of information literacy from this project is asking students to gauge their emotional reaction. And it's an amazing step that I think that we've maybe quite simply overlooked before in the research process, but it helps to determine personal bias. It helps to help kids see if a source is legitimate or authoritative, because there are a number, especially in today's fake news culture, there are a number of different types of articles that are coming out now that kids can't really tell the difference between the ads or the fake news or any of those. So that's also a great one. All right. I tried to go through the process here are some example programs, and I'm going to be done in about 5 minutes so that our friend Carolyn can show you some of the wonderful resources that PBS LearningMedia has for you. These are just different forms that I have created to show you the programs that I've done and how I've been able to present them. The only one I'm not able to show you up close is going to be the one on the far right there, but that's the process that I just took you through, which is to identify the initiatives, select the competencies that you're going to focus on. So for that example one, I put social awareness, break down the skills of social awareness, and then demonstrate the supports or programs that support those skills. And so on that one, I used book clubs and some bibliotherapy, which can easily be, if that's too intense, can be pulled out, and Reader's Advisory can fill in there as well. The yoga one, because again, selfless promotion, shameless promotion here. I actually offered yoga for educators and for students in the library, and I did that on a donation, $5 a class process, and just showed that the competencies here, self-awareness and self-management, that was going to be offered in the library, and that the specific approaches, and then tried to show how it specifically supported social-emotional learning, and how giving teachers the tools to de-stress themselves would then provide, less stress in the classrooms, and it would be sort of this trickle-down. I've always hated trickle-down since trickle-down economics, but this is like trickle-down stress relief. So from that one, I also did a sheet like this, which is more of a brainstorming worksheet for librarians to break down the competencies and then put a description of what those competencies might look like, so that you can maybe identify the programs that you're already using to be able to go back and go through that process to show the administration how that works. So since that was brief and quick, and we are coming back to slides, we are going to do one final exam here. And on this one, all you need to do simply is to take your hands. So if you're Googling or on your whatever, take your hands off your devices and clasp them together, just like the picture there. And then just look down and notice which thumb is on top. And if your right thumb is on top, you are going to be hopelessly unhappy the rest of your, I'm just kidding. If your right thumb is on top, it doesn't matter, because you can switch it and put your left thumb on top. If your left thumb's on top, switch it and put your right thumb on top. And then what I just want you to notice is that when you put the other thumb on top, that it's an awkward feeling, because you actually have a habit of how you clasp your hands. And in some of my yoga trainings, and I have not verified this with scientific research, but they say that that is actually the first habit that you create. That you create that habit in the womb the very first time that you clasp your hands in utero. And that to me has always been a fascinating thing, because whenever I get frustrated by how things are going or how I'm reacting to things, I can come back to this moment and clasp the hands and just realize that we all have these habits and things that we do without thinking. And the first step in being able to change them is going to be able to become aware of them, noticing them without judging. The right thumb up on top is not related to being right-handed or left-handed. It's not related to anything other than that's just what you're used to doing. So as soon as you can identify that, you can start to replace them with things that are useful, purposeful, and intentional. And I didn't leave a ton of room for questions here, but I am going to turn that over to Carolyn. And I hope that some of this was helpful, and if nothing else, you may have learned that clasping your hands is your first habit and interesting.
Thank you, Chani. Wow. I think it's a lot of information to digest, and I think that the there are lots of requests. We're going to be sending out your slides, your handouts, all of the links. I'll organize that, and probably it will be in a Google folder, so we'll send you the link to that as well as the recording. So yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I'm more relaxed than I normally am at the end of a webinar. So back to public television and WGBH. I want to just make sure that you all are aware of a free service called PBS LearningMedia. This is a co-production by WGBH and PBS, and it is a library of over 100,000 digital resources for teachers, and everything is free. Featured on the site are short clips, lesson plans, professional development, thousands of images that you can download, interactives, self-paced modules, etc. So it is a wealth of material that is largely brought and funded through public television, various stations. WGBH is a major content contributor on the site, and I invite you to explore it if you haven't already and share it with your colleagues. I wanted to call attention on the site to two particular collections that are very relevant to the subject at hand here, social and emotional learning. And the first is the AIM Buddy project, which is the Arthur Interactive Media Project. And I'd be curious if any of you have already heard of this. Let me know in the chat box. So you can access the AIM Buddy project as a collection through PBS LearningMedia. AIM is a social, emotional, and character development supplemental curriculum that uses the Arthur character, interactive media, cross-age buddy pairs, and solid research. And our research partner, this was a production with WGBH, and Tufts University was our research partner. In the program, young elementary children have lots of opportunities for thoughtful conversations with older elementary buddies. And the curriculum is comprised of a suite of 5 comics and games, each focused on a topic such as empathy or generosity. And they're based on the character, of course, and episodes from Arthur. So I'm going to play just a very brief segment of a 7-minute introductory video to the project and give you a little taste. And all of these videos are available. Walking down the street.
WGBH, the creator of the Emmy Award-winning television series Arthur, and a leader in public media, has teamed up with the Institute for Applied Research in Youth Development at Tufts University to create AIM, or the Arthur Interactive Media Buddy Project.
What's going on?
We're not speaking to you. That's what's going on.
This innovative cross-age buddy program uses interactive stories and games to promote character development, improve school-wide relationships, and decrease bullying.
Okay, I'm sorry.
See? Saying you're sorry isn't that hard.
The TV show Arthur has one of its core curriculum points of pro-social behavior. So it really was a natural fit for what we wanted to do with this project.
What do you think?
The overarching goal is really to get the two buddies talking to each other about these sometimes difficult topics. And we really landed on 5 topics we wanted to focus on: empathy, honesty, forgiveness, generosity, and learning from others.
Who can tell me what is the show Arthur all about?
Making friends and doing the right choices.
Anything else we know about?
The children know Arthur, they trust Arthur. They believe that Arthur's struggles are their struggles too.
Arthur told Sue Ellen he was really sorry.
And if Arthur can work it out, then they'll be able to work it out too.
Okay, so I just wanted to play a segment of that, and have to mute my computer also. I was listening to the audio. Okay, so I put the link up here on the screen of where you can find the collection on PBS LearningMedia, but if you go to the site and just put in AIM in the search box or Arthur Buddy Project or whatever, you'll easily find it. The second collection I wanted to mention, and by the way, let me tell you what we throw around the word collection a lot, and let me tell you what that means. On LearningMedia, as I mentioned, there are thousands of resources, and there are fairly intuitive ways to search and save and share them with colleagues through folders, etc., and students. But one of the ways we've made it easier for you to find what you're looking for is we organize multiple resources within a collection or a banner. So it's a curated grouping of resources around a theme or a topic or whatever. So there are hundreds of these collections, and I always point them out when I do trainings and make sure people are aware of them, because it's just a ready-made way to discover a whole grouping of related resources that you can then pick and choose, put in your own folders, and do whatever. So the second collection is called Transformative Teachers. And this is a production of WGBH in collaboration with the Dalai Lama Center for Ethics and Transformative Values. This was a relatively new collection also, I think published on LearningMedia a few months ago. And you can see the link right there. The collection is designed to equip educators with tools and methods for fostering resilience and ethic leadership skills among young people. So it's a series of videos on empathy, gratitude, forgiveness, self-acceptance, etc., that help students develop core values through art, writing, performing, and other activities. And again, I'm just going to play a very brief segment of the introductory clip to this collection.
The workshop that we did today and yesterday was about empathy, and the title of it was A Mile in Someone Else's Moccasins.
We actually wrote stories about the life of a shoe.
I picked the high heels.
We learned about what it feels like to be someone else. You don't always have to agree with everybody, but you just have to appreciate their views and you have to think about their views.
Today we just talked about forgiveness. We had this activity where you would take a rock depending on the size of the problem or the situation.
Next, we're gonna put your stone in your backpack and you're gonna walk around. It's like holding onto a grudge. So, oh my God, great.
When we finished the activity, I said that I wasn't gonna forgive, but I think it's been a waste of my time and I just need to let it go.
I'm forgiving my sister for hurting my leg really bad. Yes.
I think that through this program, teens build
Okay, let me go down on my volume here. All right, so that will give you a little taste, I think, of the quality and the approach that we're taking. Again, all of these collections are available in LearningMedia. I also just loaded, and this is a little out of order, but this is the educator's guide for the Arthur Interactive Media Project. And there are many, many videos that are embedded in this guide, which is designed to really enhance curricula that you already are using. And again, you can find this guide, the link to it, on the site, and it will be part of the in the email, the links that I send you. All right, so we are at the hour. So I want to thank Chani Craig for a wonderful presentation and a tremendous effort. And also, again, Massachusetts School Librarian Association, Kathy Lowe, the Executive Director, and Lori Luker, who also helped us out with marketing. Thank you to all of you for joining us. Please let me know if you have any questions. Chani has also offered her email right there. And on Monday, I will be sending out an email that will have as much information as we can pack into it to set you up. And if we're missing something, you'll let me know. There was a question in the chat box about PDPs. We can offer you a certificate of participation for this 1-hour session. We do receive a log of who attended. So if you would like that certificate, you're welcome to shoot me an email. You have my email right there, and we'll get the certificate out to you, and then you can use that to apply to any professional development credit. Okay, I wish you all a lovely, lovely summer break and happy deep breathing and relaxation. And Chani, again, thank you very, very much, and wish you well and a nice evening also. We'll keep the chat box open for another couple of minutes.
Thank you all for coming, and please email me if you have any questions at all or want to give me some of your own ideas. That'd be great.
Monica, I'm not sure how to offer you a badge, but maybe if you can help me out, we can figure out a way to do that. Beth, do you mean all of the sites that Chani referred to when you say include all contacts? Is that what you mean? If so, the answer is yes.
Oh,
our contact information. Yeah. Oh, sure. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yep. One thing that you can do that actually an attendee in another webinar told me, reminded me you could do it, is just copy and paste the whole chat box if you'd like. If there's anything in there that you want to keep, so you're welcome to do that now. Absolutely, Annie. The PBS LearningMedia is a site that is available to anyone, but it is, of course, of most use to educators, parents, and students. But the site, you can use the site at your will without logging in, without registering, but we encourage you to sign up, which takes about 30 seconds and is painless and free. And the reason is then you can really make full use of the functionality. You can download, you can save things to folders, share them, etc. And it also helps us out because we're public television after all, and our funders really like to see the number of people who are registering on the site and using the resources. So it helps us out also if you sign up. But yeah, anyone can do that. Yeah, Chani, you made me think. I'm very active in my local town library, and I'm going to bring this to Cheryl Heavy, the very stressed out single person who runs the library, the poor thing. She really has to rely on lots and lots of volunteers.
And once this kind of got opened up to all librarians, I've trying to add more to it to give ideas for public librarians. It's a little daunting, but there's so much that that the public libraries can do with this kind of curriculum, especially in the children's and teen groups. And even with adults, like offering, mindfulness breaks, mindfulness groups, meditation groups, people that just want to do a little bit of this work together. That's a great way to go about starting that in a public library as well. And you don't have to pass it through, a bunch of the hoops and things that we might have to do in public schools, but
correct.
Just get your director.
Correct.
Just get your director on board.
Exactly. Great. All right. Well, we're going to shut down and let you all go have your dinner or a glass of wine or whatever. And thank you again to all. And have a lovely summer. And you will receive notices from us of other presentations that we do. We routinely run webinars, go to conferences and things, and we send out emails to let you know about that. You can always opt out if it's too much, but we try and keep them to a minimum and also keep them very very informative. So, okay, thank you everyone. Good night, Chani.